Hello everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Charlie Bannon. I'm from Ireland and I'm the founder of NDESTE Ireland, and those abbreviations stand for Near Death Experience and Spiritually Transformative Experience. So the group I have, it's not limited to people who are Irish, it's not limited to people who are living in Ireland, it's for people all over the world. And when I say Ireland, I mean the whole island of Ireland, people north and south, whatever your cultural background is, whatever your national background is, you're welcome here. Welcome to the YouTube channel and welcome to my Facebook group, NDESTE Ireland. So, just a brief introduction. I have had various spiritual experiences in my life and continue to have them. I'm not quite sure if what I experienced were near-death experiences, but I've certainly been out of my body. I've been to the heavenly realm. I hear telepathic voices from time to time, among other things. And having said all that, yes, I've had visions too. Having said all that, I'm also a mental health professional and I've worked in the mental health service since 2010 here in Ireland. So I've wanted to do a series on the science of near-death experiences for some time. I tried to do it a few years ago, but I wasn't very confident, to be honest, at the time. I had a different YouTube channel at the time that's been taken off YouTube. But here I am doing this again with more confidence. Now, quite a few people recently have asked me to talk about near-death experiences. One of them was the clinical director where I work, the clinical director of the mental health service. We ended up having a chat about near-death experiences for about an hour, and he's a very busy man, so I thought it would be a 5-minute conversation. It just went on for an hour, and he was so interested and so open-minded about it all. He asked me if I would put an educational package together for continuing professional development for mental health professionals. So I agreed to do that, but he asked me so many months ago and I haven't got around to doing it. So what I decided to do was to start with this book called After. It says a doctor explores what near-death experiences reveal beyond. A doctor explores what near-death experiences reveal about life and beyond, by Dr. Grayson, who is the founder of IANS, the International Association of Near-Death Studies. So, for the last few years, I've felt that I've had this. This is an opportunity because I've been a mental health professional since 2010. I've met quite a few people in the spiritual community who have talked about various Kundalini awakenings, out-of-body experiences, seeing angels, having that near-death experiences, and who unfortunately have found themselves in psychiatric wards and who didn't need to be there at all. And I said this to the clinical director where I work, and in fact it was funny. One day I was a few minutes late for a meeting. I work in the community, but I'm also attached to a hospital, to a psychiatric unit of a hospital, and I work there usually one day a week. So I was late for a meeting in the psychiatric unit, and as I was coming in the door, the clinical director was explaining to those, like, they were waiting for me to arrive. He said, there's research now to show that not everybody who hears a voice is psychotic. In other words, psychotic is a misunderstood word. It means hallucination of vision, of sound, and possibly of thoughts as well, delusional thoughts. But he was saying, yeah, not everyone who hears voices is psychotic, and there's research to show that now. And as I'm walking towards my seat, I said, yeah, that's right. I hear a telepathic voice from time to time, and it gives me guidance, and it answers my questions, and when I check out the situation, it turns out to be correct, like why is this happening or why is that happening? Then I'll get an answer, usually a word or a few words, but then when I check it out, it turns out to be correct. So most people around the table, their jaws dropped, um, but they were curious at the same time. And I found that some of my colleagues over the years, and you mentioned about these spiritual experiences to them, or near-death experiences, or out-of-body experiences, or telepathic experiences, they say, yeah, I know, but we cannot say anything or we'll be fired. There's no need for us to be fired. I said that not quite a year ago, but I did it in front of a psychiatrist who has known me since 2012, and I've worked alongside him for maybe, we worked initially for side by side for 6 years. Then we both moved on to different teams, and now we're back together again for about 2 years. So 8 years all in all, we've worked side by side. So he knows I'm a good professional. And anyway, we ended up talking about this book after, and about various near-death experiencers, and about the science of near-death experiences. And I'm talking specifically about the science of near-death experiences in this video and in the series I intend to do. This is part one of a series I intend to do on the science of near-death experiences. And the reason I'm talking about the science is it's not for the sake of those who have had near-death experiences. You don't need science to know what you've been through. You don't need science to know what you've experienced. You don't need science to know that it's real. However, the reason I'm talking about the science is because it is the language that mental health professionals use. It's the language that that doctors use, that nurses use, that social workers use. And you could easily talk about near-death experiences through the language of art, and I'm quite open to that. But in this case, I'm using the language of science so that doctors, nurses, psychiatrists, social workers, psychologists can have something to refer to that is recognizable in their professions, in our professions, because I'm a mental health professional also. It's a recognizable foundation to hold on to that explains to some degree what's going on. It doesn't give a full explanation, but the key point, the key explanation that I want to get across, which is scientifically proven, is that near-death experiences are not mental illness. They are not mental illness. Nor are Kundalini awakenings, nor are spiritually transformative experiences. But for the sake of this video and in this series, I'm focusing on near-death experiences. Okay. Now, if you want to join me live on Zoom once a month, maybe we'll do it twice a month for a while, through the NDE Ireland Facebook group. We have people talking about their experiences. We leave science out the door for that one, because this is for the people, for the experiencers, and I'm an experiencer also. So this is for people to tell their story. It's for people to where people can achieve validation, where they say, oh my God, I thought I was the only one for years, but now I know I'm not, and now I have a community of people. Even though it's an online community, we have a community of people who understand what it's like, and who acknowledge me, and who accept me for who I am. And added to that, it's worth looking up the IAN's website. Mostly they're in America, but they're in other countries too, like Sweden and Denmark and the Netherlands and Belgium, France. These are communities where experiencers can meet in person. And as for me, I had initially thought I would set up a community for experiencers here in Ireland, but there are communities that already exist, and it's not only about near-death experiences, but I'm going to give a shout out to Siobhan Brady, who was on the on the Zoom telling us about her experiences of becoming a healer, and about her healing circles, which I attend every 2 weeks. And I receive and give healings there, along with the collective, all led by Siobhan. And then there's the Purple Raven community in near Delvin, County Westmeath. Is it Meath or Westmeath? Well, it's not far from where I live anyway, and I live I live between the two counties. Anyway, yeah, and those are wonderful communities. It's just great when people can come together and you find your tribe and you feel at home. So there we don't need to talk about science, we just need to be authentic, and it's safe to be authentic, and that's what it's all about. But hopefully these videos and the science will help educate mental health professionals and prevent them from misdiagnosing people as mentally ill. Okay, we don't want any of that. Okay, so just getting on with it. You know, if you have any questions for me, you can send me an email. I'll put my email address in the description below. It's noetic.warrior@gmail.com. That's NOOETIC.warrior, WARRIOR @gmail.com. Okay, so let's get on to talking about this book. My pen there. After, you see, I'm here in my casual, comfy clothes in my home and talking to you as if you're sitting at my table, actually in my kitchen, talking to you as if you're in front of me. Well, I suppose you are in a way, but in the virtual space. So I'm going to start with the introduction, and then I'll move on to chapter 1 next week. So in the introduction, Dr. Bruce Grayson, this book was published in 2021, 4 years ago. So at that stage, Dr. Grayson, he was a psychiatrist. Well, he is a psychiatrist, but he's retired now. And he said in 2021, he said 50 years earlier, he came across a situation which radically changed his life and his perspective on life. So he was a very young doctor, a very young psychiatrist, still at the intern stage of his training or of his career, and he was sitting down for lunch one day in work, eating spaghetti, and he had a bleep that suddenly went off and took him by surprise, and he dropped his fork and got a spaghetti stain on his tie. So he was trying to clean his tie, and he couldn't do it properly. He goes in much more detail in the book, but I'm not getting any commission, by the way, for the selling of this book. I just think it's a really good book, and if you're a mental health professional who wants to understand, I recommend this totally. Or if you're someone who's had these experiences and you're trying to explain to your family that you're not mentally ill, I also recommend the book for them, Anyway, so he got this spaghetti stain on his tie. He couldn't clean it up, and the bleep was going, so he had to go over to the hospital, leave his lunch behind, as many doctors do. He arrived in the emergency department, and there was a young woman called Holly who had made a suicide attempt, and she was unconscious. She had an irregular heartbeat. There was what we call a one-to-one special in Ireland. I don't know what you call it in other countries. There was a one-to-one special there, just supervising her, and it was night time, and Dr. Grayson asked the one-to-one special, has she been unconscious the whole time? Has she woken up? And he said, no, she's been unconscious since she arrived. But okay, so you couldn't introduce yourself to the young woman or try to find out why she had attempted to take her life, or offer her some mental health supports. So he was informed that this young woman was in college. She just started college, and her roommate was down the hallway and was waiting. She was going to give him some information as to what happened. So he met her roommate, and they went to a room at the far end of the corridor, and he interviewed her, and she sat on a couch. The air conditioning wasn't good. He had put on a white coat to hide the stain on his tie, but as he got into talking to this young woman, getting into the interview, air conditioning wasn't working. He was hot, and without thinking, he took off his white coat, put it on the back of the chair, and started to gather details as to what had happened. The woman's roommate didn't know much about her. She knew she was having some difficulties, and anyway, he took the history of what had happened and what her roommate knew of her, and then she went off. So Dr. Grayson went back to see Holly one more time, and she was still unconscious, so he left and came back the next day. And the next day Holly was awake, and he went to introduce himself. Hello, I'm Dr. Bruce Grayson. And she said, yes, I know who you are. I said, what? How could you know who I am? He said, yes, yeah, I was talking to your roommate, and she told me what happened. And Holly said, yes, I heard the whole conversation. And Bruce was perplexed at this. He couldn't understand how she was unconscious, and yet she knew the whole conversation that she had with her roommate at the far end of the hallway in a different room. So Holly was able to recall the whole conversation. She said she was there in the room with them, and as Bruce says, there was nothing in his medical training or psychiatric training that led him to understand what was just happening. Anyway, he couldn't pretend that, this didn't happen, that somehow she had left her body, and was able to recount the whole story of the conversation in accurate detail. So that set him on a journey of trying to understand the whole phenomena. Okay, so I'll read some of the extracts from the introduction that Dr. Bruce Grayson wrote. So he says, okay, just the way his career worked out, he ended up working with Dr. Raymond Moody, who had published a book on near-death experiences. Raymond Moody had come up with the term near-death experience and published a book in 1976 called Life After Life. But this whole experience with Holly happened some years before that. So anyway, okay, so he said I soon learned that near-death experiences were not a new phenomenon. I discovered a multitude of near-death experience accounts from ancient Greek and Roman sources, from all of the major religious traditions, narratives that were collected from indigenous populations around the world, and in the medical literature of the 19th and 20th centuries. Okay? So I'm just picking extracts here. He says he went on to co-found the International Association of Near-Death Studies, IANS, which would serve as an organization to support and promote research into these experiences. For more than a quarter of a century, he says, I served as the director of research for IANS and edited the Journal of Near-Death Studies, the only scholarly journal dedicated to near-death experience research. Over the decades, I assembled a collection of more than 1,000 experiencers who were kind enough to fill out questionnaire after questionnaire for me, some for more than 40 years. He says he discovered some common and universal themes in these experiences that go beyond cultural interpretations, as well as patterns of consistent after effects in individuals' attitudes, beliefs, values, and personalities. He says, and this is the important one, I have been able to show that these experiences can't be dismissed simply as dream states or hallucinations. I'll say that again. This is for you mental health professionals and you health professionals out there. I have been able to show that these experiences can't be dismissed simply as dream states or hallucinations. And so he says that, how does he put it here? Records of near-death experiences go back for centuries and exist around the entire globe, right around the world. He says, I discovered over almost half a century of struggling to understand near-death experiences that their impact extends far beyond the individual experiencer. The more I learned about them, the more they seemed to cry out for an explanation beyond the limited understanding of our everyday ideas about the mind and the brain. And those new ways of thinking about our minds and brains open up the possibility of exploring whether our consciousness might continue after the death of our bodies, and that in turn challenges our concept of who we are how we fit into the universe, and how we might want to conduct our lives. He goes on to say, far from leading us away from science into superstition, near-death experience research actually shows that by applying the methods of science to the non-physical aspects of our world, we can describe reality much more accurately than if we limit our science to nothing but physical matter and energy. Okay, and he goes on to talk, say that there doesn't have to be conflict between science and spirituality as well. He says, as I hope to show in this book, there is no reason NDEs can't be both spiritual gifts and enabled by specific physiological events. The scientific evidence suggests that both ideas can be true without any conflict, which allows us to move beyond the artificial divide between science and spirituality. And so he also says that his book, After, is a book about life and living, about the value of compassion and our interconnectedness with one another, and about what makes a life meaningful and fulfilling. He says his goal is to make you think about the questions and ponder the answers, not to make you believe any one point of view, but rather reevaluate how you think about life and death. He says pretending that something didn't happen just because we can't explain it is the opposite of science. Okay, so maybe, I don't know how you find me reading those quotes from his book. In my personal life, I'm more into just the experience of whatever the spiritual experience is, I love that much more with the science. I find it a bit dry, to be honest, I'm not the greatest fan of talking about the science. However, it has its role and it is important because, not everybody is going to believe that spiritual phenomena are real or that near-death experiences are real. However, as I said earlier on, those of us who have had those experiences, we don't need convincing by anyone. We don't need science to prove that our experience is real. We know that already. But it just, as I said, I work in the mental health service. If I see somebody in a psychiatric unit or receiving medication that they don't actually need, and I'm not saying if you are a mental health service user, I'm not saying don't take medication. I'm not saying that. I've seen people's quality of life really improve thanks to medication, thanks to psychiatric intervention, thanks to medical science. However, if you've had a spiritual experience, that is not mental illness, and you don't need medication for that, I know that when you've had a near-death experience or a deep spiritually transformative experience, it can throw your life, it can turn your world upside down, and it can take time to get back on your feet and to integrate it again, to integrate that experience into your life. But that doesn't mean it's mental illness, and it's important for me as a mental health professional and as an experiencer to come out and say that. And I was afraid to come out in public and say that for a long time. Now I'm not. Here I am. But as I said earlier on, if you're a doctor or a nurse or a medical professional or a mental health professional and somebody is telling you about a near-death experience that they've had, they don't need the psychiatric unit. They don't need a psychiatrist. Okay? They don't need that. They might need the help and support of other experiencers, especially those who are also counselors or psychotherapists or mental health professionals, those who can help them integrate the experience, but they don't need to be in a psychiatric unit or to take medication or a label of psychotic. Okay, those are different things altogether. And Dr. Bruce Grayson in a later chapter does go into the difference between hallucinating and having a near-death experience. Okay, and you might think they are similar if you don't know any better. Because in a near-death experience, you have visions, you may hear voices. Somebody who is experiencing psychosis may also hear voices, and also have visions. But the experience is different. It's very, very different. I know people who have had near-death experiences and spiritually transformative experiences, and they're very high-level professionals. Very high-level professionals. One globally known project that was done last year. I mean, they were talking about this project. It was a unique project, the only one of its type in the world. And I asked, I heard about it on the news, and people were talking about it for a couple of weeks, but I thought nothing of it. I thought, oh, that's interesting. But I was trying to make contact with one of my friends who has had 2 near-death experiences, and I said, oh, do you want to chat? And I said, I can't, I'm working on this project now. and she was one of the people with great responsibility for putting that project together, and is probably watching this video, but I think it's a major example of someone who has had 2 near-death experiences and is able to manage such a global phenomenon that people around the world are talking about, saying, isn't that work amazing? Isn't that project amazing? So somebody with psychosis or schizophrenia who has not taken medication for 20 years after their first episode, they wouldn't, with the negative symptoms of schizophrenia, there's no way they would be able to do that. Anyway, yeah, so they are different, and look out for the next video. And I hope this is helpful. Hope it's interesting. Hopefully it helps you in your life. If you have had a near-death or a spiritual experience of some sort, and your family are worried about you and they think you may be mentally ill, show them this video, or get them to write to me, and join our group, join the NDE Ireland group. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, you're welcome to join. You might find other groups through IANS as well, or find out what's going on locally. You don't have to be alone. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah, talk to you soon, and I look forward to doing this series. All right, bye-bye.